You can play it safe at quarterback, but I'll be shooting for the fences with these late round league winners. In the last 2 years, Jordan Love, Brock Purdy, and Geno Smith have all finished in the top six quarterbacks, despite going undrafted in most leagues. So hang around as we beat the waiver wire and claim you your own league winning late round quarterback on the Fantasy First Down. Welcome to the Fantasy First Down. I'm Ben Wasley. So you've loaded up your team on running backs, wide receivers, and tight ends, but you need that quarterback in the late rounds to help you win your league. Today, we're going to help you out with that. We're talking late round quarterbacks. If you haven't already, make sure you like and subscribe on YouTube. You can also check us out on Instagram at the Fantasy First Down, on Twitter at Fantasy First Down with no O. Our website, which has all of our rankings, is ffdfantasyfootball.com, and you can check out my articles at football.rasball.com. Let's get into it. So there's a couple of things that I mainly look for, but the number one thing that's really useful is a very solid rushing floor. Most of these late round quarterbacks aren't going to be on the best, most high scoring teams. And so you need something to help you through those games where the team's struggling a little bit. In most of these cases, it's a good rushing floor that can help a quarterback succeed, even when they're not able to pass the ball effectively against a good defense. So that's the number one good thing. Ideally, your team is also relatively pass heavy. So I've seen in the past that teams that pass the ball a lot, unsurprisingly, have quarterbacks who are surprisingly effective because they're getting more pass yards and more passing touchdowns. You also really want a high-scoring offense because when the offense is scoring more points, you're scoring more points. So you want as many points happening for your quarterback as possible. We also aim for good receiving weapons and good early matchups. Obviously, you want good guys passing the ball, but it's even better if they're playing against weak defenses where it doesn't matter how good your offense is because anyone's going to put up points. So let's talk about my top 5 guys. Jaden Daniels is a true rushing threat in the mold of Lamar Jackson. So you are going to get plenty of yards on the ground in addition to strong passing yardage because he also is very good through the air, especially with deep balls, and he doesn't turn the ball often. So if you get punished more for interceptions in your league, you're also going to really want Daniels. He's got a solid receiving core without it being fantastic. He gets pretty good early matchups, and I expect that Cliff Kingsbury is going to do really good things for this offense. The problem with Daniels is that you do have to take him a little bit earlier. He's going around that 9th, 10th round region in a lot of leagues, and that means that if you're going for a true late round quarterback, you might miss out on getting Daniels. Having said that, you can still put together the full core of your team and expect to get Daniels before you're able to fill out your bench and things like that. So Daniels is my favorite guy. But if you want to go a little bit later, I really like Kirk Cousins as well. We know that there's a lot of good things going to be happening with this Falcons offense. We expect Zach Robinson to come in and make it look a little bit like the Rams. And we know that's going to be very effective, good tempo, pass heavy. Their receiver core has improved. We know Drake London is talented. They've got Kyle Pitts. You expect a fair few checkdowns to Bijan Robinson. And we know that Kirk Cousins is happy to air it out. Everything we're hearing is that they want this offense to be fast, pass heavy, and really effective and high scoring. He's clearly the QB1 going into the season, but there is a little bit of risk. There is the possibility that Michael Penix Jr. takes over at some stage. I think if the Falcons are still winning, we do see Cousins see out the year pretty safely, but there is that downside of the possibility Penix takes over at some stage. Having said that, you're spending a double-digit pick on him. So even if he's just good for the first few weeks, he probably should be good for the first couple of weeks, especially with the Eagles in week 2. I expect you'll at least be able to make this pick pay off for a while, even if you need to change tack and get a different quarterback down the stretch. Caleb Williams is number 3 for me, and he's going in that same range, that kind of 9th, 10th, 11th round. We know that there's some really good receiving weapons here, and that's probably the best thing about this pick. They've got DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, and Rome Odunze, who are all going to be very good. They've got 2 quality tight ends. They've got good pass-catching running backs. So you'd expect that this offense will involve a lot of passing and a lot of runs after the catch as well, which should be pretty safe for Williams. He also should have a solid rushing floor, and we know that he's a very safe week 1 starter, and he'll stay for the whole season. The problem is there isn't exactly a great record in non-run heavy rookie quarterbacks being very successful in the league. We saw CJ Stroud being pretty good last year, but he was ultimately still the QB 11. I do think Williams is special, though, and there is plenty of upside here. So I would confidently take him in those mid to late rounds, knowing that Shane Waldron should come in and make this a very effective pass-heavy offense. I know that's not all we saw from the Seahawks last year, but the Bears have a far stronger O-line, and I think that Williams is going to be able to succeed. He's a worthwhile late-round dart throw for me. If you don't want to go this early, if you don't want to be between the 9th and 10th rounds with the quarterback, if you want to take someone in the last rounds of your draft, then I suggest someone that you're not going to expect. It's Daniel Jones. We're talking about a guy who 2 years ago was the QB7. It's not like he has been terrible indefinitely. He was injured last year. The offense as a whole struggled. I think that there is bounce back possibilities. Having said that, I do think it's possible the Giants all around suck this year. Their defense is really going to struggle, but I think the offense could make a step forward. And if they're chasing games a lot, there could be a lot of Blake Bortles style garbage time that we saw a few years ago where he was surprisingly effective as a QB, despite the fact his whole offense sucked and he scored most of his points in the fourth quarter. Like Bortles, Daniel Jones is a very good rushing quarterback. You don't really think of him that way, but he's very effective. He gets reasonable amount of yards on the ground. He's probably the 4th, 5th, 6th highest rushing quarterback over the last few years. And that's going to continue this year, and it's going to have to because they still don't really have the greatest O-line and the greatest run game. So I'd expect that Daniel Jones is going to have to run the ball a fair bit, and I do think that Malik Neighbors will give this offense a little bit of a spark that they didn't have last year. So this is a very low-risk call. There's also a real risk that this totally burns out and fails, and that's totally fine. You're not paying much for this pick. You give him a go for the first couple of weeks, especially in week 2 where they get a fantastic matchup, and we just see how he goes. There's not really any threats of quarterbacks behind him, so you know that if things go well, that he's going to hang around for the whole season and give you okay production. I also think that you can sign up Daniel Jones in conjunction with another quarterback and just see which one of them hits, and that's not going to cost you anything but a bench spot. My 5th positive quarterback play here is Matthew Stafford. A little bit more expensive than Daniel Jones, but I think he has more upside. When you look at that passing core, that pass receiving core, I should say, Puka Nacua, we know he's elite. We know that Cooper Kupp has been amazing for a long time, and I don't think he's done quite yet. Demarcus Robinson is very underrated. Tutu Atwell will be useful. The tight end's going to be a little bit iffy. They're going to have a strong run game, but I don't expect them to run the ball as much around the red zone as we saw last year. So I think they're going to be very effective, and we will see a little bit more passing this year. Less passing certainly than 2021 when he was a top 6 quarterback, but we at least know that upside's there. There's no backups that are threatening him. He's got a fantastic first couple of matchups, which is one of my favorite things about picking up Stafford. You can take him in conjunction with one of the younger quarterbacks and know that you can confidently use Stafford the first couple of weeks and then use a younger guy on your bench and see how he goes. And if he's going well, then you can feel more confident to put that younger guy in later on. So this is a good pick to use in a committee with another quarterback, and you can bring them in based on their matchups. There are a couple of other guys I also wanted to highlight. I think that Tua Tagovailoa goes a little bit too early to be considered a late-round quarterback, but I do think the upside there is clear. We know that Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle are elite. The problem is that they love to run the ball inside the red zone, and that really limits Tua's passing touchdown upside. He also, of course, has that concussion risk, which admittedly didn't happen last season, but it's always a possibility. So you've got to worry about that with Tua. So he's someone that you have to take earlier than these other guys, and he comes with that risk, but I do think there is a clearer path to good production with Tua. I think he's set for around that top 12 sort of finish again. Couple of later round guys. Sam Darnold's going super late because people aren't confident he's starting. I am confident he's going to start. And we know that this Vikings offense can be good with the pass. We've seen Kirk Cousins be pretty effective in it over the last couple of seasons. Sam Darnold can run an offense, and I do think he could be one of those Geno Smith guys who surprises everyone and actually turns in a good quarterback season for fantasy. I do think that JJ McCarthy is going to have to wait a while to get that starting job. So you might not have Darnold for the whole season, but he's a great committee option that you can use in conjunction with, I don't know, Matthew Stafford, Daniel Jones, maybe one of the younger quarterbacks, and then suddenly you've got someone that you can feel pretty safe about using given how much their offense is going to have to pass. Aaron Rodgers was someone that was a top 12 option last year, And yet he's totally fallen off a cliff this year, despite the fact he has better pass catching options. They brought in Mike Williams. Hopefully he's going to be healthy. They've brought in Malaki Corley. I do think this offense is going to be solid. There's no reason to think Rodgers will be any different from what we thought we were going to get last year. So I think he's being underdrafted. Lastly, Baker Mayfield, sneaky top 10 quarterback last season. I think he's another solid option. They've still got Mike Evans. They've still got Chris Godwin. Kate Otton's solid. Rashid White's a good pass-catching running back. Plus, they've also brought in Bucky Irving, who's an excellent pass-catching running back. A lot of passing options, not much of a run game, and they were a playoff team last year. So there is reason to think that potentially Tampa could run it back and Baker could be a good late-round option. Now, there are going to be a couple of other late-round guys that you consider, and I would urge you to stay away from these guys. Firstly, Justin Herbert, going into a really run-heavy offense. We know how Harbaugh works. He is going to run the ball early and often and have a very safe passing game. Look at J.J. McCarthy last year. Good quarterback, early round quarterback, one of the best quarterbacks in college, not really being used a lot in the passing game despite his talent. We've got another talented quarterback, maybe slightly overrated according to some people, but talented quarterback in Justin Herbert. I think he's going to turn into something a little bit closer to a game manager. They don't have Keenan Allen and Mike Williams anymore. We don't really know what to expect from their wide receivers. The run game is going to be very heavy, and we're going to see a lot more running than you would usually get from the Chargers. Their defense is going to struggle a little bit, which is the only upside with Herbert, but I feel like he might just end up being held off the field and they try to grind out games with a really slow pace of play. I think this could be a really ugly year for Justin Herbert. I think you have to take him a little bit too early for my preferences. If he was going truly late, then I can understand the upside, but I think the downside is considerable compared to the other guys you can get in that range. J.J. McCarthy and Drake May, I don't expect them to start this year. I think this is going to be a situation where, at least for the first half, first two-thirds of the year, they sit on the bench and learn. We might see if their teams are struggling that we see them later in the year, but I would be surprised if it happens any sooner than that. There is no reason to waste a bench spot. Even in a Superflex league, unless it's Dynasty, I would not be wasting a bench spot on either of those guys because the upside isn't even great when they come into the starting job. Finally, Jared Goff was the QB7 last year. That means that people are taking him way earlier than they should. We've seen this in the past. When guys pop up with surprisingly good years, they often don't back it up. When it's a surprise success, it rarely happens again. We saw it with Geno Smith and Daniel Jones, who were drafted pretty early last year because they had those good finishes and they couldn't back it up. The year before, we saw it with Matthew Stafford, had a really good year, couldn't back it up. This has been happening for eons. There are going to be guys that have top 10 finishes and won't do it again the next year, and they always get drafted too early. Don't draft Jared Goff too early. He doesn't have the passing options outside Amon-Ra St. Brown and Sam Laporta. You know their run game will be elite, and they'll lean on it, especially in the red zone. So don't take Jared Goff early. Take one of these other options that you can get later on. Finally, if you've got a draft coming up and you need help, and a lot of you will, then consider my personalized rankings offer. I helped a lot of people out last year and we had a really good success rate. I'd love you to join the crew. Basically, here's how it works. Every league is different. Your scoring settings are different. Your roster construction is different. And the settings and the rankings you find online will be different to your league. They will not suit your league. No one has the same league settings. And rankings are all written by people who have different ideas in mind as to league settings. So even if you go to a Fantasy Pros consensus ranking, everyone involved is going to have different league settings, and it's not going to help you out. You need league settings that suit your rankings and rankings that suit your league settings. So for that reason, I will personalize rankings specifically for your league for a very small fee. So feel free to hit me up. You can email me at benwasley23@gmail.com. or you can hit me up on social media, and I'm happy to help you out with that. And that's all we've got for a very quick late-round quarterback chat. Hopefully that is going to help you win your league. If you haven't already, make sure you like and subscribe on YouTube. We're going to have heaps more off-season news, heaps more chats about drafts, a little bit more dynasty stuff, although we're moving towards the end of the dynasty season. I'll be talking about a couple of draft strategy things with that, and then we'll really get into redraft stuff and talk about the preseason once that kicks off. Make sure you also follow us on Instagram at the Fantasy First Down and Twitter at Fantasy First Down with no O. I answer all your questions over there. If you need rankings, ffdfantasyfootball.com. And if you want rankings personalized to your league, make sure you hit me up on social media or email me as well. You can also find my articles at football.raspball.com. Plus, they've got a heap of tools to help you with your drafts as well. I look forward to seeing you on the next video.